Chrysalis is one of the best worlds, story and quest-wise. So, for me, I tend to agree partially on this statement. The thing about Chrysalis is that I really like the idea that it shows basically what happens to a world that's taken over by Morganth. Because most of the worlds that we've been in, Morganth is, a part of these worlds, but she never really was the ruler of those worlds. Until we get to Chrysalis, and we actually get to see the effects that tends to happen with Morganth. We get to see the stories of the many characters in Chrysalis that were affected by Morganth's wrath, and it was really good. I tend to really like it. Also, getting introduced to Old Cobb was really cool. But at the same time, her ending just really wasn't as satisfying in my opinion. As for the quest thing, I disagree on this one partially, 50-50 as well. Because it does start up as like a little bit of a weaker Azteca, but still it's kind of difficult because they tend to have high health with the bosses and high health with the mobs, because for some reason we can totally do this and be patient, but we can't. And it does tend to improve once we get Darkmoor gear. So once we get Darkmoor gear, it does tend to become easier and a lot more fun. Burning Rampage isn't broken. So I actually agree with this statement. When it comes in terms of Burning Rampage compared to many other Lore Master spells, the thing about Burning Rampage is it's just damage, really. And it's not really as much of a usable spell when going second. Yes, it could definitely help you, but it could definitely be really counterable fairly easily if you were to go second, compared to if you were to go first. And in my opinion, this is actually one of the spells that can actually be counterable. As for Ifri, on the other hand, Ifri is one of those spells where you could be super offensive and also you have a little bit of a defensive aspect to Ifri. It could be used as both ways. Even though, yes, it does cost 8 pips, it is a very overpowered spell, in my opinion, compared to Burning Rampage. Because right when you do damage, you have the weakness. So you have two choices. You either remove the weakness or you just protect yourself from another attack. But here's the problem. The problem is that, especially when it comes towards the max level PvP, where Shadow Pips tend to give you a really good advantage. If you're to protect yourself, then you still have to deal with the weakness. Then you have to deal with the weakness, remove it next round, and by then, most likely Fire Wizards tend to have a spell already ready for you for their next attack, and by then it's basically KO. It's a really hard spell to counter. It's a really easy spell to predict, but really hard to counter in my opinion, compared to Burning Rampage. Angry Snow Pigs isn't useless. I actually do like Angry Snow Pigs as a spell. Like, again, I don't have it, and I could definitely see the use for it, and I honestly forgot about its effects because it's been a while since I've actually seen it being used. But it could be really good against someone who tends to spam tower shields and you want to remove 2 tower shields in one. So it definitely could be useful for that type of case. All King Art spells are fairly useful and really epic, not just Myth and Fire. See, the thing about this is, like, I really do like the idea for most of the King Arts, like the Life one, the Ice one, and even the Balance one. The Death one I don't like at all, because the Infection just isn't useful unless you're going against a healer like Life, but it can only do so much compared, like, it's just like one infection compared to a bajillion life heals, and that's where it comes down to. As for, the Balance one, like I said about the Balance one is actually really good. It's just that, when it comes towards 8 pips, I rather use 2 Lore Masters, stack the weaknesses, stack the accuracy debuffs, and it'll do a lot better. Not only will it do more damage, but it gives more utility to me compared to just using a King Artorias right off the bat. But it definitely can be usable. As for, like, the Ice one, I mean, there's some better options out there. Most of the time, I mean, let's just be honest, like, Lord of Winter is probably, like, the prime card to use for Ice. Because not only does it do damage, but it also has a really useful utility of being kind of like a mana burn. And not to mention, the Shadow spells being better, and then, some spells, like, I even think Angry Snow Pigs might be a better thing to use sometimes. And even Frostbite. Guardian Spirit and Lore Master don't need nerfs. People just need to learn how to play around them. So, I disagree hard with the statement. The thing about Lore Master is that it's really easy to spam. It promotes you for spamming this spell because of how useful it is, utility-wise and damage-wise. Now, yes, it isn't really as effective without using a strike, but once you get a strike, it's really dangerous to, go against. And even the lower level, it's just a really annoying spell to counter with, because most likely, not many people can build that much accuracy, and then it becomes an issue of, like, fizzing most of the time just because of a spell that does damage, and also, weakness, and a accuracy debuff. Like, it's just insane how much Lord Master could do for just 4 pips. So, in my opinion, I just think that it should just be 5 pips, so that, yes, it'll still be a usable spell, but it's not something that makes it easy for spamming. Prime example of this is Athena. Athena is a really good spell for Myth Wizards because not only does it do damage, but it also allows us to get a shield, in case we don't really have a shield to begin with and we need some form of protection. And Athena is basically right there for that reason. But it's not spammable because of the 5 pip cost. As for Guardian Spirit, I do like the idea of having a second chance when it comes towards, you know, doing PvP, but I think second chance is like all you need. You don't need any more than just 1, 2 chances. You don't need any more than 2 chances.
Not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
The way I would see it, it's like, you can make it to where it's a one-time use, and for people who tend to love to complain about spells that they love using, that they can't use it, just basically increase it to, like, I don't know, like something like 50% of the person's health, and only one-time use. So, basically preventing it to be spammable, but it also still is pretty useful. Pet Derby is better than PvP. Nah. Monstrology is actually cool. I don't know about that. It's just something that I tend not to enjoy. We also even got another Monstrology comment from John Seed saying that no one may have asked for Monstrology, but it's not that bad. In fact, I think Monstrology is actually pretty cool because you can have some very notable bosses in your house, like Malice for the Undying, Rattlebones, and even the latest update being Old Cobb himself. And also for house decorators, it's a really nice thing to have, and for myself, it's pretty darn useful. I mean, I do agree with the fact that, Monstrology can be useful for, like, house decorators. It's just anything else to me, it just doesn't really seem as... But, here's what I'll do. If this video gets 1,000 likes, I will be doing a Monstrology series. If somehow I'm still in the WIZARD101 community and this video gets 1k likes, I'll do a Monstrology series. How about that? The recent spring updates are bad. No PvP fixes, no pet training fixes, greedy as usual, crowns for a character slot, and for Decalathon bundles. So the thing about the character slot is they could have just not do it. And the thing is, like, in the long run, you do tend to save more money, and it really just depends on what type of person you are when it comes towards actually doing these things. So it really just all depends on you at this point. Other than that, though, I do think the Decalathon is pretty cool. It could be really improved. We also finally got a majority of Wizard City being finished and being revamped, so it's really nice to see. It looks absolutely beautiful, and it's still kind of fun. WIZARD101 is wizards with 101 whiz heads. Players in the game. Get it? WIZARD101? The cringe is real. Devs are the best school for Exalted PvP. I don't know. I think it's still Ice and Fire that are still the best one. And still Balance, in my opinion. Fishing is an underrated aspect of WIZARD101. There is so much potential for it, yet it is overlooked in the game in comparison to gardening. Another unpopular opinion is that there are many beautiful sights and scenery of the game that are overlooked by most of the community. I agree with both of those statements, actually. I think that for most of the time, people just tend to ignore it because they're just focused on trying to get to max level or focused about trying to do this, and that. And I tend to be guilty of it myself. Sometimes, the music of it is actually really good. Now, nothing compared to Kingdom Hearts, which I have the door open, so I don't have my Kingdom Hearts poster over there. It's still good music. And when it comes towards fishing, I do think it's really useful. It could be really useful, depending on how KI wants to do it. The only thing I hate about fishing is how much of a chore it could definitely be to do it sometimes for some people. And it's the same issue that I have with Monstrology, that sometimes it just feels like a chore to do it rather than something that you want to do. And the KI means to make it to where it doesn't really feel that way. But, or maybe it's just me, just overthinking it about it. But the fishing can be really useful. We saw it with the revered wands and how useful the revered wands can be. You can actually get reagents with the revered wands, but in order to get the not reagents, you need a certain reagent for the revered wands that included you to do fishing. And the best way to do it was to go up all the way to Azteca, get a spell that increased treasure chests, and there you go, bingo. The only problem with that is, like, how long it tends to take, how RNG it really tends to be, and it just gets annoying after a while. So I could definitely see why people tend to pass fishing. Zafari is actually a pretty good world, since most people just quested through it when it was all still new, and the defeat and collect quests and glitches were everywhere. They can't see the world for what it is after the update. Raging Bull should do more damage than glow bugs. If you look at the AoE spells before Shadow Pips were added, Fire did more damage per pip than Storm, but with massive damage differences between bugs, Storm is undoubtedly the king of quest hitting now, and I am not a fan of that. I think the game will be more interesting if the questing terms revolve around a fire to hit minions and a storm to hit wizards to hit the boss rather than single target spells. Oh, with their single target spells. Also consider the bull cost per pip is more than bugs, and the bugs actually even has enfeebled. Can sometimes be more useful than the minus 25 mantle from Raging Bull. I think that having the 2 best hitting schools specializing in different types of hits will be more interesting and bring more variety to the game. Headless Horseman is the most broken spell in game. When I say broken, I mean that the spell is just way too OP. When you realize that it's better than Kraken in every way, accuracy and damage, and does more damage than the Skeletal Pirate for 1 less pip and 5 less accuracy, then said, I'll admit, lore is more spammable and causes more annoyance in PvP. The Hatchmaking Kiosk is basically pet prostitution, and Myth needs to be seriously improved as a school and has been neglected by KI ever since Safari or maybe even Celestia. I tend to disagree with most of these statements, so let's talk about number 1. So I do agree with the fact that people tend to miss about the beauty of Safari. I do think it's a really beautiful world. You know, the jungle aspect to it is really nice. I feel like it's the only world that has a really nice jungle safari aspect to it, which is actually really good. I do like it. I can't wait to see how that will look if it's ever revamped. I would love to see that world revamped. But the thing is that the reason why people tend not to like Safari isn't really because of the scenery. Everyone can appreciate the scenery. I do like the music there too. It's pretty good. And it's more the fact that it's the defeat and the collect quest that really just defeats the beauty of Safari. I feel like the defeat and collect quest, in my opinion, tends to ruin most worlds for me because of how annoying it could be, especially for worlds like Safari, where like there was a moment you had to fight 7 monsters, you had to collect 7 things, and you had to collect 8 things, and then I don't even know if there was one with 10 things. I don't even want to know if there was one with 10 things, but there was just so much defeat and collect quests in that world, and it was just really annoying. As for Raging Bull, I disagree with this one as well. I think, if anything, Raging Bull should just have more of a useful utility, being, instead of a minus 25 mantle, maybe increase it to like a minus 45, kind of like a Sirens or so like that. Just make it more useful for PvP. And the reason why I don't agree that it should do more damage than Storm, it should do more damage than Storm's Glowbugs, is because Storm just tends to be known for lots of damage. Most of their spells have to deal with damage. Most of their stats should have to deal with damage. And even though Fire is technically the same way, Fire is been a little bit more utilized for single target bosses, mainly because of the fact that they have spells like Backdraft, and the game promotes Backdraft to be used, so that's why it's more useful than Storm most of the time. In my opinion, I think Myth should be more, you know, improved when it comes towards the PvP aspect, because the thing about Myth Wizards is that, well, what can we do? So, like, yeah, we could do damage, but no one really wants to blade for us. Earthquake isn't really that useful because it takes away everything that's useful in the first place, like weaknesses or traps, you know, etc. You name it. And then, what else can we do? Just Shatter. And the thing about Shatter is that other schools can carry Shatter if they wanted to. They just need to get the TC for it. They can also do it themselves. So basically, it defeats our purpose in most dungeons like Darkmoor, or like Omen, or like Storm Titan. Or, like, you could just name any other third arc boss or third arc key boss that is really good for drops, and you could just name any boss, and Myth would be pretty useless in those, because no one really wants to blade for them. But I think Myth is probably one of the schools that should be more improved when it comes towards, you know, the PvE aspect, because most of their spells are PvP, and it's great for PvP. It's just that, you know, you kind of need a ward pet, but they could still do really well in PvP, and it takes a lot more skill compared to the other schools. Headless Horseman, though, Calypso is, I believe, a better spell when it comes towards damage. It's another spell you can get from Lore Master. You can also craft it, and because of the plus 25 trap, it does more damage than Lore Master. At least I believe so. So it really isn't that big of a deal. And also, I may have agreed with you that pick the, like, you know, the Hatchmaking Kiosk is basically pet prostitution. I feel like that is the thing. It's WIZARD101 theories. Many people pick their character name and account name when they were a kid. It would be nice for KI to have a rename option at least once. The Plant All spell and the Plow All spell should be for lower level characters who at least have level 15 gardening and not have to go to Avalon. Questing gears in Wizard City are really trash and should be increased their stats. Their stats should be increased. 10 years on mutes is ridiculously too much and it needs to be reduced. Jade Sense should be prohibited from tournaments to prevent long matches so players can join the next tournament on time. So these are actually pretty good unpopular opinions. I do tend to agree with most of these. Number one, I do think that it would be really cool for KI to allow us to change our names because sometimes we may not like it. The second one, I hard agree on that because I think it just comes to a point where gardening isn't really just about going to different worlds. It's just more about your love for gardening or the usefulness and benefits that come with gardening. It's not about you going to worlds and seeing different gardeners and then get different spells on them. I feel like every gardener should have the same spells all over. Maybe give different plants and stuff, but have the same spells all over so that everyone could get the gardening spells as long as they have the rank for it. I don't agree with the Wizard City one. The reason why is because we have stuff like Mount Olympus, farmable gear that's already always better than the gear that you tend to get in the Bazaar once you get to a higher enough level. Tenure to mute, I do agree, should be reduced. And as for the Jades thing, I still think Jades are still something to be used for tournaments. I just think that if it comes down to the point to where Jades are affecting times when it comes towards tournaments, that it should definitely be the times in tournaments that should be lowered rather than just removing Jades in general, because Jades are still really useful for team PvP just to prevent, onslaughts. That's the whole point of Jades. All spells prior to shadow spells should be updated to have the same atmosphere effect as the shadow spells. For example, Darkmoor spells have an atmosphere pop with its own background when the spell casts. I do agree that there should be more of like a status effect around as a background compared to what we see in Glowbugs, having some of the lightning around and then the background of the swamp. It's really nice to have stuff like that. It just makes the spells look cooler. So I do agree with that. Only Myth Wizards should have the double hit spell. Only Myth Wizards should be able to select spells from summon minions. Turn-based PvP should be a normal ranked match mode for ranked. I agree with most of these actually. So the thing about the double hit for myth spells, I think anyone should have access to have a double hit. But I do like the fact that every school has its own type of unique feature with them. So I do agree with the fact that maybe myth should be the only one with the double hit spells, because it gives that uniqueness for schools that typically KI tends to promote. But it's not really that big of a deal to me. I do agree though that if there's anything that should be more unique to the other schools, it's not really the double hit, but it should definitely be the fact that we should be able to control our own minions. Basically we'll pick a card, we'll have a section to where our minion picks a card that we get to choose, and it will be really good. And I do agree with the turn-based one. I feel like turn-based PvP for rank will be a lot of fun. It does take a little bit more skill. It doesn't really rely so heavily on first or second. And it's something that you might have to get a little used to with certain strategies, but it is a really nice mode to actually try out and see what you can do. Stitches are a very underrated aspect of Wiz. I definitely agree with this statement. I think when it comes to stitches, it's just one of those things to where most people tend to not really care that much about stitches, and I really wish people should. Stitches, anything customization wise, in my opinion, it's just one thing that I really love about games like Wiz, racing games like Midnight Club or something like that. It gives you the customization. It allows you to express yourself through customization, or just something that you just want to do that's inspired, something that you think is cool. Just stuff like that makes it really fun to do. And I tend to spend hours just trying to figure out a stitch for all my characters for the most part. So honestly, the fact that I tend to see the majority of people is oh, it's just, get commander gear or get insignia gear or, blah, 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 blah. It's just you guys are some of the most basic people I've ever met. Because it's just you should really take pride in what your stitch is. It's just something that, it's just really fun to do. I mean, and you want to look good. You want to, for me, I want to look unique when I do PvP. Obviously, there's going to be people who probably have similar stitches as me, but there may not be as much. So my whole goal is to probably be as unique as possible for PvP, and just in general. And guys, that will conclude our unpopular opinions of WIZARD101. I'd like to thank everyone who came over and discussed their unpopular opinions with me, and I hope that you guys did enjoy this video. If you guys are interested to do more community stuff with me like this, just make sure to follow me on Twitter. The link will be in the description. But as always, hopefully you did enjoy the video. Make sure to leave a like, especially if you want to see that Monstrology series. You know what I mean? Like 1,000 likes, bro. It's not that hard to do. Just give me 1,000 likes and I'll do a Monstrology series, I promise. Subscribe if you haven't, and as always, remember to stay frenzy. Peace!
And this is how it sounds when I'm walking on the sky.